Yep. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the 271st meeting of the Equal Employment Practices Commission. If Executive Director Jean Victor, if you could please do a roll call of commissioners.
Yes. Chair and Commissioner Aldrin Vania,
Present.
Vice Chair and Commissioner Elaine Reese,
Present.
Commissioner Alcantara,
She said present.
Oh, mute me. Okay, present. I'm sorry, I was muted.
Commissioner Yearwood,
Present.
and Commissioner Garcia Caro.
Commissioner O'Carroll is on her way, from what I understand. We have quorum. Next, we'll have a motion to approve the minutes for December 19, 2023.
So moved.
We have a motion to move by Commissioner Reese, second.
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Yearwood. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Next, we have the approval of audit resolutions, the 2024 final determination resolutions for 2 city agencies. Do I turn that to Executive Director Jean Victor?
Yes. So we have 2 agencies for 2024 final determination resolutions. The first one is number 2023 AP/271-846 for 2023. That's the Department of Parks and Recreation. And the second one is 2023 AP/271-806 for 2023 Department of Housing Preservation and Development.
I move they be approved.
So we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Alcantara, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Next, we have agenda item 3, subsection B, 2024 compliance resolutions for community, Brooklyn Community Board 11. Executive Director Jean Victor.
So we have one compliance resolution for 2024. That would be number 2023 AP/271-481 per 2024 C1 Brooklyn Community Board number 11.
We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Commissioner Reese, motions to approve. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
Commissioner Yearwood seconds. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Next, we have subsection C, the 2024 final determinations and compliance resolutions for Queensborough Community College as well as Borough Manhattan Community College. Do we have Executive Director Jean Victor? Can you read them into the record, please?
And I'm going to refer to Menelik Allsop.
Oh, Menelik, can you pronounce your last name for me?
Allsop? Yeah.
ELLSOP.
So we have resolution number 2023 AP/271-464, the paren 2024 C2, which is Queensborough Community College. And resolution number 2023 AP/271-466, paren 2024 C3, Borough of Manhattan Community College.
Thank you for that. We have a motion to
So
approve.
moved.
Commissioner Reese motions. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Yearwood seconds. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the final determinations and compliance resolutions of Queens Community College and BMCC, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Please let the record show that we've been joined by Commissioner O'Carroll.
Good morning. Sorry to be late, everyone.
No. Just started. So, the next item of business is old business. There was nothing on the agenda for that. If that's still the case, we'll move on to the next item under section 5, new business, subsection A, audit survey results. Any Any context that the EEPC senior staff want to give on the survey result? Turning to Executive Director Jean Vickers.
Yeah, at the conclusion of 2023, we audited the agencies that we audited and that have completed their audit, were asked to participate in the survey. The survey was distributed by the research unit, and we submitted the survey to 58 entities, and we received 24 responses. So it was a 43.6% response rate,
Which is terrific.
which was good. And we provided you with the responses and some of the feedback from the agencies, which I felt was pretty good in general.
Having read it, I had a couple of oversight senses. One is that we probably ought to relook at the software because there seems to be problems with uploading and at least commentary about the difficulty. The second, which I thought was a terrific suggestion, was as you begin an audit to provide a 1 or 2 page document explaining what EO is and what the rules are. And I unfortunately called it a dum-dum exercise, but in fact, I think the better term is a refresher exercise for the EO officers and for anybody beginning it. And it's probably a good exercise for us too, to look at the rules. From time to time, they do change. The law does alter, the regulations do alter. City Council has new input on what it's looking at. And it's probably worthwhile to do looking at it annually and update it annually as well. My only suggestion is that it be written like Dick and Jane, like a early primer for a first grader. And I'm serious about that. It's one of the things lawyers are supposed to do is to translate difficult concepts down so a layperson can understand it. And I think that probably is the task that you ought to be undertaking here, to just make it easier for the people who are indeed in-house regulating, making sure discrimination doesn't occur, to understand what the rules are. Anyway, I thought it was a wonderful thing. I really do, having come out of the world of marketing and advertising, a 43% return is really terrific. I mean, normally you expect a 5 or 10% return. So the fact that that many people were interested enough to give you a sense of what they thought was wrong or right with what you were doing, I thought was really a very good sign.
Did we get the 3 emails that were bounced back or that were incorrect? Did we populate the data set with the correct?
Well, I flagged which ones weren't there, but I did not make much of an effort to, because if those were the contact we had, their new HR or EO person probably is not the one that was involved in the audit. So therefore, I didn't think it was worthwhile to reach out to them.
Yeah, so good response rate. I mean, I know you probably wanted more. Since it's like a captive audience in a sense, and they are EO officers for the most part. It looks like a lot of the responses kind of fell into like 1 or 5 buckets in terms of concerns around time.
Yeah.
That meant different things to different people.
Yeah.
Concerns about the length and the repetitiveness of some of the questions, which probably contributes to time. The ease of use, and I guess the ease of use there mainly under the bucket of in terms of uploading documents into the system, as well as there was one comment that I found interesting around kind of maybe the COID interface model where last year's responses are, there's like, I think what they call the historical repository of record or archive. So the folks know what was answered last year. I don't know how analogous that is to the work we do, because maybe we want fresh answers for people to look at this again, but some felt that previous answers should have been pre-populated so that you don't have to go back and look through stuff that was already there. But there may be an argument as to why we wouldn't want to do it that way. And then some of this falls under the bucket of things that involve that butt up against technology issues. I guess, for the end user as well as for our agency. I appreciated the ones who took time to go beyond just the agreed, highly agreed, or strongly agreed type responses and actually wrote something down. Several wrote very thorough and elaborate responses. But what was interesting is that usually elaborate and thorough responses are people who are completely or solely dissatisfied with the service provided. But in this case, these were individuals who went out of their way to say that the EEPC staff were wonderful and extremely helpful. And there were no complaints in that regard, but were really actual recommendations of what they felt could be done better. Not, critiquing the EPC staff, the process, or the outcome. There were some numbers that fell below the 80% or 83%, which is arbitrary for us, but when you're only looking at 24 questions, that does become a number that can be a threshold where we could add greater attention to. And in particular, I think, this notion of how we can help agencies be better, the value additive one, it would be nice for us to try to dig deeper into that and figure out how we could be more value to the agency so that they feel after undergoing a process and such interactions with us, they feel that they're better off as a result. So I appreciate the agency audit satisfaction survey undertaking and the results, I think, provide a lot of insights. Some of the deeper ones that we could unpack, obviously, would be an executive session because it does pertain to operational work product issues. If there's any other comments on this topic, Commissioner Reese?
Yeah, if you look at the participating agencies in terms of your percentage of 24 responses, it looks like the community boards really didn't respond. Because the community boards are the bulk of, based on what I remember in numbers, there's nothing from a Manhattan Community Board, for example, of which there are 12. And so you really, and I assume that they were all part of the audit.
Well, so yeah, some we didn't get to yet. So the Manhattan Community Boards we're gonna audit next year.
Okay,
So they weren't concluded. And also we only included agencies that were fully completed with the audit. So there were a few additional Brooklyn Community Boards, for example, that are still undergoing the audit, so they weren't included.
and there's nothing from Queens, so
Queens is next year is what we're gonna audit.
Okay, so that's why the community boards are not here, okay. Thank you.
Next, we have new business, subsection B, annual report.
Want me to take that?
Yeah.
So the annual report is with you. I got feedback from our vice chair. I had asked for feedback by today. If anybody needs more time, technically by the charter is supposed to be submitted to the city by the 15th. I don't know if they're gonna crack the whips if we're late. But certainly if anybody wants to give feedback and hasn't already, I would encourage you to please do it as soon as possible.
I will orally share my feedback. What we talk about success, and to the extent that you were trying to support success, it would be a reduction of lawsuits. And is there any way at all to track it? So we went back and forth in trying to figure out how one could track it. But maybe it's as simple as asking the controller, because that's where the lawsuits end up. How many EO lawsuits have they had this year? How many did they have last year? How many did they have the year before? And while we can't really correlate the two, it probably is a way of saying if it's decreasing, taking some of that as part of our success. I mean, you probably can't really say it is, but on the other hand, if it is decreasing, then our intercession and asking and making sure that the processes are being followed, we could probably take that. So maybe that's a way of, and you're not going to do it for this year, but you might very well see whether or not that's available from the controller next year, and whether or not they track it, whether they break it down so that the claims against them, against the city for discrimination that they resolve, whether they have a separate file a separate number.
They do, they submit a report every year, I guess, to the mayor's office or whoever, detailing the dollar amount of the claims that were settled by the city, broken out by civil rights complaints. The only problem is that they lump EEO in with civil rights, and there are a lot of police, civil rights issues that don't touch us. So if they can distill those issues from the EEO complaints, then we might be able to get a good sense of.
Well, why
About
don't we
those dollars.
at least ask and see whether we can pursue that?
That's part of it. It's not just police. Any agency that's public facing and deals with the public can get a discrimination complaint about service, which is not in our domain. So as the data are right now, we can't distinguish between employment discrimination from a city personnel member or a client or a customer from a city agency. So certainly I am happy to reach out to OMB to ask them if they can break that out. And if they can, the only thing I would add too is ideally, in addition to lawsuits, it's also complaints, certainly, right? Which would probably be even harder to get, is my guess.
Well, I
Yeah.
believe complaints is almost impossible.
Yeah, right.
But to the extent that we're talking about success,
Yeah,
within quotes, if we can look at reducing the amount of funds the city has to expend
yeah,
for employment discrimination claims, that would be at least some way of saying that's part of our intersection and part of what we view as success. I don't know, it's worth trying to look at. Anyway, that was my
Yeah.
comment, because we use in the annual report, we use the term success, and I don't know how we can prove it.
yeah,
It's nice to claim it,
right.
but there needs to be some support for it. So it sort of jumped out at me.
We've already reached out to the law department because they also have some of that data to see if they can get it to us in the way that we need. So we're having conversations with them.
Okay, thank you. Anyway,
Thank
I
you.
thought I would make, that was my comment back and forth, and I thought perhaps the commissioners would have some further insight or some further concern. But if you're trying to add personnel and you're trying to add funds to what you do, then you need to show some benefits from what you do and need to have some way of correlating our success.
Any other comments? I haven't had a chance to take a deep dive into it, so obviously it's not gonna go out until a deep dive into approval. In terms of my overall first reading of it, we do wanna have our work obviously be promoted and describe our achievements and accomplishments throughout the last year, which I think is the purpose of the annual report. I'm concerned in some aspects of it that we might be over kind of stating some stuff, particularly around what we were, some things we want to happen, like with community boards and other things with other agencies, but they have not happened, and we make it seem like it has happened. But I'll weigh in on that when I get a chance to more thoroughly read it through. And this annual report is something that is it more like a charter mandate thing, or is it more of a tradition?
The charter specifies has to be submitted to the city February 15th. It's in the charter.
Just like
For every agency.
For every agency, it's basically, I forget the exact language, but it's basically that we have to submit to the city documentation of what we've done in the past year.
Yeah.
And so basically, at a minimum, I think that needs to include the number of agencies we've audited and something about the corrective actions,
Yeah,
more or less. But I don't know, I don't remember the exact language offhand, but yeah, it's in the charter.
yeah, more like operational successes than
Yeah.
successes, things like that. All right. Next is, any further comments on that? Next is section C, website updates.
Yeah, I just wanted to let the board know that we are overhauling our website. We've been having internal meetings to discuss what the website should look like. We are looking at trying to make it a little bit more easier to find things and to be a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit more up on the technology, like including more photos and videos to kind of show what we do. So towards that end, we are probably going to not only change the look, but maybe the tabs and the feel of the website, to make it simple, as you mentioned, what we do, who we are, that kind of thing. And one of the things I did want to point out is I want to post the standards that we audit our agencies under. So right now, they don't really know how we audit them. They don't know what we're looking for. They don't really understand what the program should contain. And they find that out on a one-on-one basis when we go in and talk to them. What I'd like to do is kind of post what a model agency should contain. Make sure that all your policies are distributed, make sure that, when we come in, you're able to show us how those policies were distributed. Did you email them or did you post it? Make sure your training is up to date. And this is going to go hand in hand with the newsletter that we're sending out to remind agencies of certain things that they need to do. For example, there are 2 new protected categories as of the end of November of last year. Height and weight are now protected categories in the city of New York. Have you updated your policies? Have you distributed those policies with the updates? Just reminders and tidbits of information to keep the agencies in compliance. Because the way I view my role here is that to make sure agencies get into compliance, but stay in compliance, that they are in compliance and their program is working. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we make the information available to agencies, make it easy for agencies to get in and stay in compliance and understand what it is that their program should contain.
Commissioner Reese?
Is there any way you can do videos and attach it to it of how you interview? Because that's where some of the problems are, dealing with probably disability and putting in a video on that, sexual harassment. If you edit that in as a video and an attachment onto your website, that might make it more useful. And a separate question, do we know how many people have ever looked at this website? Have we any tracking of how
Yes.
many people? So
Yes.
do we know what the numbers are?
It is under 10.
That's what I was afraid you were gonna say. So,
I don't even know the real number.
no, it seems to me that if you make it, it's not even more user friendly, simple to understand. But if you make it full of more information, like videos, so that the EO officer or even others, employees would know what's involved. And maybe there's some way to put some of our, you should excuse the expression, reports in a visual manner that is simple to understand. So to the extent that you're doing local law 13, maybe there are elements of it that can go in a simple fashion onto the website and would be of interest to other people. I'm trying to underscore what you've been saying all along, which is fact, to make what we do known to more people. The website is clearly a way to do that. It's not, I hate saying this, it's not used currently. And how do we make it more useful so that people actually want to spend the time on it with information that they find useful?
I think once we start paying more attention to the website, and updating things and putting things out there that people would find of interest, I think we're gonna get more traffic. Because I think right now, the website's been the website. We haven't really done much with it. It's up there and we don't really, we post the minutes. We post the videos, we post the reports. But if you're not really engaged in what we do anyway, you're not gonna even take the time to look at it. But if we start using it more as a bulletin board where people can go and get information, I think we're gonna see more traffic.
Okay. Maybe the thing to do when you redo it is send an announcement out to your audience, which is essentially the EO audience, and maybe send it out to the mayor's office and the controller, LMB, and the city council.
Mm.
And start from there as to trying to create an audience.
Where you have in-house, personnel capacity around, the update,
Yes.
website updates that you're doing?
Yeah, so after Dennis left, we hired Suat, and Suat's able to do this.
Any other comments on the website update? And then we have the budget for fiscal year 25 preliminary budget hearing information. I guess that's, Executive Director Jean Becker.
Yes, I included in your information the email that I received regarding the budget hearing. We are scheduled for March 15th at lunch, 12:30. And it's going to be at 250 Broadway, 16th floor. CCHR goes on before us.
I'm more than happy to come. Suggest that we're gonna probably wait forever, and maybe they'll hear us. That has been unfortunately the pattern forever.
We,
What's the date? Can you repeat the date again?
March 15th
March 15th.
at 12:30.
Okay.
In terms of, the 3 asks or so that we have, can you draft a letter to the speaker of the city council and have the letter signed by all 5 commissioners? Just, on the record, what this year the asks are. If we keep them to just 3 or so, I think it's more manageable. I'd like to hear that we could try. Okay. Anything else on this topic?
I can attend if you want attendees.
I'm sorry?
I can attend.
Oh, good.
If Jean wants attendees.
Sure, I think that the commissioner's presence would be
Makes a
welcome.
difference.
And yeah, I think
It makes a difference. It
Okay.
really does. make a
Okay,
difference.
okay.
But be prepared to
To,
just sit,
oh, okay.
Bring a book.
bring a good book.
Next, we have the audit update. That's section 6, if you're following along, subsection A, the status of 2023-2024 audit plan status update. That's, Menelik. Awesome.
So you should have the audit snapshot for February 8th. I'll start with that. So basically, this shows the agencies that we voted on their compliance resolutions, how many corrective actions they had. So both Queensborough Community College and Borough Manhattan Community College, they had 2 corrective actions into compliance monitoring, and they were able to implement both after the final determination. As far as the community boards, we had Community Board 11. They also had 2 corrective actions, and they both were related to training. So a little below that, we have the most prevalent corrective action for pretty much all the community boards is ensuring that their staff are trained. As far as compliance monitoring, there's 12 agencies in total, 6 bigger agencies and 6 community boards. The ones in red are the ones that their compliance monitoring period ends this month, or they're more or less in an extension. So we have BOP, TRS, and Department of Finance. Those are 3 agencies whose compliance monitoring period ends this month. In terms of the corrective actions they still have. So it shows the corrective actions they had at the preliminary determination stage, at the final determination stage, and then what they currently have. So those are the 3 numbers there as far as the corrective actions are concerned. And as far as the community boards, it's the same thing. So how many corrective actions they had at the preliminary determination stage, then the final determination stage, and what they currently have in compliance monitoring.
I go
Commissioner
back
Reese?
to the earlier discussion of the comments, in which one of the comments was that it's, not that it's repetitive, but that they'd like to have what happened before and knowledge of what happened before. But what we're my understanding is what we're doing is taking a snapshot going back. That we can't, I mean, you can't take a snapshot of a complaint that hasn't happened yet. You have taking a snapshot of what's happening going back. I don't understand the relevance of knowing where they were about 4 years ago, whether that's of any use to anybody except us to see whether they're tracking and improving. But I don't know how that's of any use to the person, the EO officer at all. And what troubles me is that shows me a misunderstanding of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And so that comment is troubling to me in retrospect, because and it goes to simplifying, again, using my demeaning term, Dick and Jane language, but we are auditing your performance during the last 4 years to make sure that you are in compliance with the law as it is written. I mean, it's almost as though that's what you want to say in the beginning, so that everybody understands the only way we can do this is to look back. You can't look forward for a complaint that hasn't happened yet. You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
And so it's troubling that that comment's there because someone that doesn't understand the process.
I think, yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but it did come up at least 2 or 3 times in the feedback. I think there may be a possibility for the end user, right, the lived experience of individuals. If I am an EEO officer for X agency, there may be small, some of these comments may be from small agencies, right? And I'm new to this position. And one of the questions is, do you have your EEO statement? And the other one is, where's the EEO policy? And I'm like, what the hell is the policy in the statement? I'm just being it 2 months. I think the idea is that rather have people search and go over the database, you click on the attachment that was done last year, and they'll say EEO policy revised as a such and such, you know, and I think that's what they're hinting at. Similar to how we do our conflicts of interest board disclosures and our last year's response as to what kind of debt or what kind of thing is populated there. So you don't necessarily have to go figure out and get what you submitted last year. Some people feel that to be a waste of time. I think was the quote that came out of one of the feedback and the others. But again, I'm just really,
But that's not relevant here because whatever you answered last time has nothing to do with what your answer is going to be.
some of the CEO stuff is evergreen, right? Some of it is evergreen. What do you say? I mean,
I don't think so.
I'm inclined to agree with Commissioner Reese that if the last time we audited an agency was 4 years ago, I do not want to assume that just because something was the case 4 years ago, that it is.
There were no sexual harassment claims 4 years ago. That doesn't mean they're on 10 this year.
yeah, no, that's not, and we wouldn't know if there's time. I mean, if we look at the EO log, I guess we would, but we would have to, we don't get that minutia into the log. I think it is about the institutional knowledge of documents that do exist. Maybe within our, that pushes us, right, to get into the lived experience of people in these positions, right? So maybe it shouldn't even be just the presence of a document, right? For us, it might be, oh, okay, the document is there, but how much intentionality is there? It may be the presence of a document, and we may be looking at revised, right? If someone gives you a document and it was from 2021, they complied because now you have the document. But maybe from our point of view, in terms of the intentionality of it and how much can change in 4 years, maybe for us is really not only is the document there, but what kind of revision, what kind of treatment has been done to the document since then. So maybe we're looking for a revision date, you know, revised as of 2024 or something. I don't know. What I'm saying is that it merits further discussion in terms of whether this is just compliance or whether we care about commitments to certain values and certain practices over time. So there's enough of people who have very good experiences and comments about their interactions with the EPC staff being helpful, but yet took their time to really, on multiple occasions, for multiple different people, kind of allude to this sense of waste of time or length or repetitiveness or clunkiness of finding stuff and uploading things that, based on why we would do it, a satisfaction survey to begin with, we need to really dig deeper into, which is why I mentioned that's the kind of stuff for executive session. But I suspect that it's not either or, it's like both ends, right? It's some of this stuff is, brand new and they should be thinking about it. But some of this stuff is documents that they've kind of uploaded in the past. And for someone, particularly, I think I've heard in last meetings that there's a lot of turnover maybe among EO
Yes,
officers. I've also heard that some people have wear this hat, if you will, in addition to many multiple hats. So I think there should be some grace given and some empathy in that situation. So whatever we can do to help with institutional knowledge, whatever is evergreen, but we want it to be revised. We looked at, you mentioned height and weight. Maybe some of the documents they have all these protected class languages that don't have height and weight. I suspect they won't. So how proactive are we to, look for those particular words and things, So there's a lot that we can do that I think will help contribute to the last part in terms of many agencies. And one of the questions we ask in terms of how have we helped make the agency better? And, some people might say, oh, thank you, I didn't know about the height and weight, or we forgot, So I think that's an area where, again, we could be value added.
And just so you know, we are definitely doing those things. We definitely are. We are definitely looking at our technology, having to re-envision how we interact with the agencies in terms of documentation. And trying to build something in-house as opposed to getting a consultant to come in and design something. So we have that going. We also have been extremely flexible with making sure that agencies that didn't have enough time were not honest about it. We make sure that we helpful to them. So yeah, we are definitely not being tone deaf to any of the comments, and we're trying to make sure that we address those issues. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. In no way with my comments, I hope I reiterated that everyone's saying interactions with the EPC have been so hopeful and they have learned things. I just can't help, like you and others, that there's what we push people to focus on kind of helps shape and model behavior and practice. That's what we even exist. So I think that it was an aha moment for many of us when we were discussing with the fire department, how asking, do you have a complaint log? Okay, here's your complaint log. And we're like, okay, check. Versus, hey, what can we ask that has them be on top of the complaint log, but has them be on top of something that we care more deeply about, which is what's the length of time that lapses between a complaint and a resolution. So then the complaint log is just an artifact of something to help us get at what we care more deeply about, and maybe might be focusing on that one column. So if we get two for the price of one, and what we really want to care about is the length of time or the speediness that people feel their complaints are being addressed. That might be a point. That's just an aha moment that many of us came to recently when we heard from folks from the fire department, or at least not folks from the fire department, but at least one constituent group that represents many members of the fire department. Any other comments on this issue of audit plan status updates? I think this is very helpful, and I think this was the result Commissioner Yearwood, I believe, or.
Sorry, Aldrin, can you repeat the question?
No, I said if there was any other questions on this.
Okay, no.
I think it was Commissioner Yearwood.
Yeah.
Right.
So I find it helpful because it helps us direct our attention to like the component parts that make up the whole of the audit. I think that's very useful.
So yeah, the other sheet that has the number of entities issued a corrective action. That has like a spreadsheet with, it lists all the community boards individually. Which corrective actions they had, and then it compiles the total number of corrective actions that they have for compliance monitoring. So this was also created kind of in response to Commissioner Yearwood's suggestion.
And then, for example, Russell, like one thing here is, there may be an example of evergreen. And it might be just a thing, a language that might even confuse a new EEO person is, for example, EEO tagline. And I even asked, what the hell is an EEO tagline? Right? But, and there's three that have compliance actions around that. But EEO tagline is something that may be evergreen and not, there's new height and weight. But this notion that at the bottom, from what I understand what the EEO tagline is, this notion that there's like a boilerplate language to be attached to every job posting.
Yeah,
Around we are a, so that, an individual human being should have wrecked their brains and scour the earth to find or know where this kind of tagline is, because I don't think they have much discretion of how that language is from agency to agency. So like that would be one example. Right? Would you say that's fair enough?
well, not even that the language would change, but that you make sure that they remember to put it on all of the job
It's maintained.
postings. No, I know it's right, but, and I don't know, I've never posted a job posting for the city, so I don't know if there's something that automatically they throw up there, or it's something manually that the person.
It's not automatic, because I think there's some people,
Yeah.
there's corrective actions on it, so
Well,
that corrective action must mean something.
It's both. So DCAS establishes the language. And if you're an agency that utilizes NICAPS, which is DCAS's system for high
Job.
applicants, getting applicants on board, that language is already pre-populated. And that language recently changed. It changed like in last year. But there are some agencies that are not on NICAPS. So we have to see what that language is, and they oftentimes don't know that the language has changed. So we have to let them know that going forward, they need to use the new language.
They don't use NICAPS because they use Idealist or they use other job sites.
They use other software to manage their applicant data.
And in this situation, all we're ordering for is that they have the language.
Yes.
All right, so that's fair. Any other comments on this? Next, we have audit update B, agency head principal EEO professional information session.
So as part of our initiative to try to have more touch points with the agencies and to make sure that they understand what we're doing, we've scheduled 4 meetings, 2 with agency heads and 2 with EEO professionals, to talk to them about what the audit process is and what they can expect to see. These initiation sessions, these information sessions rather, are half-hour in length or a little bit longer. And it offers the EEO professionals and the agency heads the ability to ask questions and to get an overview of what the audit is about.
Are they in person or online?
They're online.
If you're going to an agency head, is it really the agency head that's online or someone on their staff?
Both. Sometimes it's the agency head and sometimes it's their designee.
And do you have any way of being able to tell whether they're paying attention? I'm being serious.
Only if they ask questions, only if they seem engaged. It's hard. It's much harder when you're remote, especially if they're not on camera. So I can't really tell you if they are, but if, like Menelik did a session on Monday and there were a lot of questions. So I knew that there was a lot of engagement. I did a session on Tuesday. There were no questions. Menelik has a session after this meeting around 2 o'clock today with EEO professionals, and I have agency heads tomorrow. I'm hoping that they are engaged in it, but I can't guarantee it.
Have you thought about doing something, one-on-one? I mean, for example, have you thought about trying to see the head of the fire department or their designee?
We hadn't really explored the one-on-ones. We're doing 34 agencies this year. So,
That's why we have budget requests, right? We need more staff to help us.
we would need more staff. But, right now, we, had not really contemplated doing one-on-ones.
Well, I guess, right, my question in throwing out the fire department is we know there are some issues there and trying to do a one-on-one, I mean, I'm being selective. I'm trying to do a one-on-one to try to highlight the issues, and maybe it's not seeing the head of office, head of the department, but seeing the EO officer so that you are highlighting your concern. So I just think about it, Jane. I'm not mandating it. I'm just suggesting that maybe it's worth focusing on where historically there have been concerns about employment discrimination and trying to just highlight our concern by going forward. And I don't want you to waste time, and I don't want you to go looking at every agency. I'm just suggesting that maybe there's some that warrant a personal meeting.
Any other comments on this topic? Next, we have the audit initiation letters.
So, in the same vein, I just wanted to let you know that, we have 34 agencies that are going to be audited in 2024. And I gave you a handout, which was not included in your packet, but I just handed it out before the meeting. For the people that are
Yeah,
remote, I emailed it to you guys before the meeting started. And that, tells you how we're breaking down the agencies for this year. So, for the audit initiation letters, which are the letters that really officially start the audit process, we only launched the first 2 buckets. We launched 16 agencies, not 34. Because, we don't have the staff right now. We only still have the one person. We have one new person that started, but they're not really ready to get started on an audit. And I didn't want to have a situation where we overloaded ourselves with getting documentation in from various agencies and then having those agencies sit and wait. Hence the complaint about, we have to hurry up and get our information in, and then you don't get to us for another 6 months. So I split it in half. And we are expecting a new person in this month, and hopefully we can start, addressing some of these other
so out of the 4 analysts, we only have 2.
2.
Commissioner Reese?
It would be useful, I think, to know the number of employees. So there would be another bucket here, so I would know, so I know that as to the fire department, you're looking at a large number of employees. I assume for the Department of Education, that is true, and that for DCAS and NYCHA, that is true as well. And it would sort of, and I'm fairly certain you're doing a balance so that you can, because it has to do with paperwork, but it would be, I just am smiling because my suggestion to you of talking to the EO officer of the fire department before I looked at the letter going out, I think it's probably worth a phone call to go see if you can talk to them in person.
Okay. And to address the other issue about balance, Menelik has been doing this now for a number of years, and he has a good sense of what agencies have been in compliance in the past, what agencies need a little bit more assistance, and he assigned the agencies to the investigators based on that, based on his experiences in the past.
Yeah, I did take into account the size of the agencies and tried to split also between mayoral and non-mayoral, between the analysts for some of those various things.
Thank you.
And the size of the agency affects the audit in what way?
Okay, so especially for this audit type, since we're looking at underutilization, many of the bigger agencies is where you will find the underutilization, where it's more prevalent, and then it's more of a challenge to address it. Whereas some of the smaller agencies, if they don't have any underutilization, then there are a few standards in our audit that there's not really much they can do or much documentation they can give to us for those standards. So in some regard, it could be a little easier on the analysts in the sense that they won't have to look through in detail what the agency is doing as far as their recruitment efforts. What are they doing in terms of an assessment of selection,
So the
et
agency is
cetera,
only
to
15.
address underutilization?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the agency is only 15 people. so-
Yes, not statistically significant, or there's not enough personnel to determine that there is underutilization, that is not underutilization. So that's how the size.
And I assume that the size also deals with the number of titles that you have. So if if you're larger, you're gonna have many more titles, and that will then deal with whether or not you're promoting or interfering.
Will they still be asked these questions as well? Underutilization
Yeah.
is just a subsection.
Yeah, so they still get asked all the
All the regular
questions,
questions,
it's just
get deep in.
you would deep dive in those areas where there is underutilization, because some of the standards specifically outline steps that they should be taking to try and address it.
Very helpful. Anything else on this point, audit initiation letters? Next, we go to, Russell Shop, research update, I believe. Point agenda item 7, subsection A, local law 13 reports, right? Chief Victor? What's Russell? Yes.
Yes.
So the report for the city's workforce is with all of you, and my understanding is we'll talk about that today. So I don't know if anybody has anything they want to bring up now, otherwise we'll.
No, but in executive session, since it's still draft form, right, still work on it.
Okay, and then for CUNY, it's been with CUNY for about a month now, and we're still waiting for their feedback and comments and haven't received anything yet. So,
That's an interesting practice, right? It's that we have an audit of a particular agency, right? Then we give it to some member within that agency to just give us feedback, or?
so we asked for feedback from them for a couple of reasons. One, we're not as privy to any changes that they've undertaken in terms of, say, for example, updating their availability estimates, or if there's been any changes in their employment practices or anything. So we rely on them for anything that might be helpful for the report. So it's useful to keep an open line of communication. And secondly, we want to make sure that the recommendations are relevant to them as an institution. And just because we don't work as closely with them as we would with the other city agencies, it's useful to share it with them. We're not necessarily obligated to incorporate their feedback, but just as a courtesy, I think it's useful to give it to them to share first.
And how much longer, would you anticipate us waiting for feedback before we make
Jean's been the one leading the communication, so I'll leave that up to her.
Well, I sent an email yesterday to CUNY. I didn't receive a response back yet, but I'm gonna press them a little bit to just see if I can get a response from them. And then we don't necessarily have to wait indefinitely. As a matter of fact, we can go ahead and send a report out to the commissioners for their comments.
Did you send it to the deputy commissioner?
No, we did not.
Who's that?
Deputy Commissioner of what?
Deputy
At
Commissioner.
CUNY, there's a deputy chancellor, it's hard to write.
No, we didn't send it to the.
Why don't you just send it to her?
And I know,
I don't have her name right now, but I'll look it up for you.
and I know last time it was Andrea Shapiro.
Oh, yeah, Davis,
She's
Andrea
gone.
Shapiro Davis.
She's not there.
Yeah, but
She was gone a long time ago.
she came back to help with the mayor's transition team. So, yeah, she might have.
Huh?
I know some people
she
who
is.
work, are y'all looking for people who work in the appointments office?
No.
I remember, was it with you or with that? I remember there's an Andrea Davis Shapiro gave us back some pretty elaborate, or at least there was an exchange of emails around.
Oh, from the mayor's office. Well, yes,
Is that the-
well, that was in her capacity for the mayor's office.
Right,
As
It
appointment.
wasn't in relation to the CUNY data?
No, it was in asking about the CUNY report, but she was with the mayor's office at the time that she
And
said.
she wanted to like review it, or she was
She-
reviewing it, or she has certain concerns?
She had questions, more clarifying
About it, right?
questions.
Like
Yeah,
about it?
basically, yeah.
Yes, she may be, I don't know. Maybe I'll go back to my emails and see what context that was. All right. Next, we have a symposium date.
So I'll take this one, Russell. I'm still pushing to have a symposium this fiscal year rather. And I'm looking at the end of May or early June. Looking at Thursday dates. In fact, I didn't write them down, so I just want to double check and make sure I don't give you the wrong date. So I was looking at Thursday, the 23rd of May. The 24th is a Friday, and Monday, the 27th is a holiday. And then I was also looking at June 6th or June 13th.
Yeah, that week before the holiday, I think some people, even if it's Thursday, I think some people are already in somewhat vacation mode or extended Memorial Day week mode. So I think maybe June
Sixth.
6th may be better, just from what I know in terms of how people like to really maximize those vacation days.
That's true.
So that's for the symposium date. Next, we have section C, pilot program with city agency to remedy underutilization.
So, since the last time you guys met, which was in December, it's been very slow. So we've done a handful more interviews since then, and we are working to launch what would probably be best called a climate survey of all of the personnel. So the department has agreed to go forward with the survey. However, there's been a lot of back and forth about the questions and how it's going to be distributed and all of that. And we're hoping to launch it, I would hope, by the end of the month. It's been a bit delayed for various reasons. It's different people there want some input and just to make sure.
Good luck.
It's exciting. I think
Yes,
It's exciting, and it's kudos to whoever these folks are to want to like help us dig deeper. Into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Kudos to them. Any other questions on this point? Next, do we have a motion to adjourn public session to go into executive section? We have a so moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Reese, seconded by Commissioner Okaru. All in favor, say aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now disconnect. Commissioner, you wanted Commissioner Alcantara, I think you